For real this time. I know I've been stopping the parts every single time. At random times. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna actually do this what if. So we left off with the sports festival ending and moving on to the Stain arc. Well, Stain saga or something. So it starts off with a report of Stain killing another hero, the hero killer. Ida's brother dies, of course, blah 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 blah. Midoriya and every other kid goes to the hero agency. Midoriya and Christian go to the same hero agency. Because, well, screw it, I don't feel like making my own hero agency. So, yeah. He goes to the hero agency, and I don't really know what happened in between that, but yeah, whatever. So, I'm just gonna move on to the fight with Stain. It's gonna be Christian, Todoroki, Deku, and Ida. Ida is enraged that he sees Stain, because he hates Stain, because he killed his brother, so he goes... my headphones by accident. He goes, Receptro Burst! And kicks Stain in the face, but Stain catches his foot and slices it and stabs it. And does his stupid quirk that turns Ida down. Midori goes 1 for all, full cowling, 20%, because he can use that at will without taking any damage. Goes up and kicks and punches him. He kicks Stain in the stomach, and then punches him in the face with a Detroit Smash, setting him up. Then Todoroki putting a firewall above him so he can't jump up even higher. And Christian puts a firewall right under him, a fire floor, because he can manipulate his fire. And then they trap Stain, and then Ida comes in with a Receptro kick, setting him out of the fire, not setting him out, kicking him into Todoroki's fire, then down into Christian's fire, burning him even more. He is hurting himself. He is getting burned. Now Todoroki creates ice piercing Stain, but it breaks right when it hits him. But it does do a decent amount of damage. Deku comes in with a knee to the stomach, then puts one finger out and says, Delaware Smash! And flicks, but he's holding Stain's head. So he flicks him. This flick hurts. And then Ida comes from behind with a Receptro Burst, full power Receptro kick, sending Stain into a wall. Stain gets back up, uses his quirk, and goes, and stuns him. Then Todoroki jumps up and shoots an ice wall down, covering Stain up in an ice barrier. Then he puts ice under the ground and then pierces Stain up, hits Stain and stabs Stain. Then Christian comes in and fire punches him, putting fire into his fist. He goes for Fire Fist and then punches him into a wall. Deku with a big punch, and then Christian going for a Flame Ball. He picks up a ball, he creates a fireball, and yeets it at Stain. Hits Stain in the stomach, but it doesn't explode. It drags Stain into the air, and then explodes. And then he says, that's what I call a fireball. And then he jumps towards Stain and says, goodbye. He grabs Stain's head, and then goes, Blaze Kick! Knocking him out. And then they tie him up. So yeah, now we're going to move on to the exams. So the teams are Deku and Bakugo versus All Might. And then the next match is Christian and Todoroki against Aizawa. I'm not going to do any other fights because screw it. So Deku and Bakugo doesn't go normal. Deku actually has 20%. I'm pretty sure he only had like 10% back in the timeline. So he goes 20% and goes straight after All Might. He misses and All Might punches him down, sending him flying. Bakugo grabs him by the arm and yeets him back up with an explosive housing impact throw. Deku comes and punches All Might in the stomach, but it doesn't do that much. Then Bakugo goes for a housing impact and hits him. and then All Might is stunned for a second. Then Deku comes in with a Detroit Smash, sending All Might flying up in the air. Then Deku running towards Bakugo and yeeting him up there. And then Bakugo puts his hand on All Might's back and says, "Shine!" And then a giant stun grenade sends All Might down. Then immediately Deku activates One for All 20%. And Bakugo immediately goes full power housing impact to the edge. They all blitz too, but All Might appears right in front of Deku. When he goes for the punch, Deku grabs it and says, "Sorry, All Might," and yeets All Might behind him, slamming him against the ground. And then for safe measures, Bakugo does a giant explosion, sending him flying back. And then they immediately pass. Then Deku Bakugo pass. The next one is Christian and Todoroki versus Aizawa. So immediately they don't think of strategy. They just want to go in because of their strengths. So immediately they see Aizawa, and then he says, "You know, I've been working on my speed, so." And then he immediately vanishes from Todoroki, and then he says, "Hey, Aizawa," and Aizawa's like, "What?" And then he gets hit by a big fire blast. But then it was revealed that Aizawa escaped. He does that Dobby thing that he does, and then it doesn't work. So then he jumps up and says, "Are you serious?" And Aizawa appears behind Todoroki and says, and tries to get him. And then immediately Todoroki notices he creates an ice like field, and then he gets trapped. And then he says, "Is that a little too hot for you, Sensei?" And then, boom! And then he gets burnt, and Aizawa's feet get burnt to the ground. They are burnt, so he can't really move that well. He can only disable the quirks. Out of nowhere he hears, "Fire punch!" He's at maximum speed. Christian is right in front of him. And then when Aizawa was about to dissipate his quirk, he lets go of his quirk, and then Aizawa was like, "What?" And then he goes, "Blaze kick!" and kicks him up, and says, "There you go," and kicks him up. So he kicks him up and destroys him. And then Todoroki comes down with a fire beam like Bakugo did, but way stronger. He goes, "Ah!" And then Christian comes below him, 2 knees to the stomach, and then slams him down and says, "Looks like it's over," and then creates a ginormous, and I mean giant, fireball, and yeets it down. And that knocks out Aizawa, because that is too powerful. One ginormous fireball when he puts all his energy in. Then Todoroki goes, and they both go. And then he said, so they're pretty fast because Christian knows how to fly, basically with fire. He blitzes down there, and Todoroki actually uses his ice skate, and then they make it. So everyone else does their passing and failing. Now we move on to the camping arc. Yeah, this one, of course. Shigaraki's minion recruits Dabi and Toga. And yeah, blah 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 blah. So immediately at the summer camp, they do I'm not saying that name. The cats come, and immediately they're training them. Todoroki's in a pool of boiling water to fix the temperatures, so we can try and use both. Really, Bakugo's just doing his exploding thing, and Christian is trying to wield as much fire as he can. He's practicing with his fire, sparring with Tiger, and he's actually doing really good. So let me just explain how the sparring match goes. Tiger runs at him, and then Christian immediately shoots a fire at him. Then he kicks fire at him, and then he just keeps on unloading fire at him, and says, "How's that?" And then he appears behind him, going for the punch. He goes, "Nice try, nice try, Tiger." Spins him around and punches him. And then he says, "Oh, how about a little more?" And then he goes, "Fire blast!" and blasts him with a fireball, sends him up, and the ball explodes. And the ball explodes with Tiger down, and then Tiger gets immediately back up. So then Christian goes on his own, and he goes and he jumps on a mountain and says, maybe I could just see how big the fire gets. So he puts his hand up and says, well, time for my strongest fire, and it engulfs the sky with fire. And he goes, so that's my limit. Maybe I should do a lot more. He does even stronger. It's so strong that it pushes him up, pushes the fire, and his feet are implanted into the ground. And he goes, alright, that's a new record. My feet have actually never gone this far in. Then he goes, one more time. He goes full power fire beam, shoots it up in the air, and his head is underground. And then Aizawa was like, where did he go? So then he walks over and he's like, oh, hey Aizawa. And Aizawa was like, how are you in the ground? He said, well, I shot my fire too hard, and I dug myself into the ground. So yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, he fell into the ground. He blasted fire so hard that that his feet crushed the ground below him. So yeah, whatever, we're just gonna move on to the camping arc. Oh yeah, Christian's not gonna be useful in the camping. His fire's a little too hot. Also, they don't trust the black fire. Okay, I ain't being racist. Nobody say I'm racist. I'm saying this because nobody sees it. Trust me, in Naruto, I don't think anybody else would do that either. Alright, whatever. He just doesn't feel like it because his fire is way too hot. It'll probably explode it. Once he saw Bakugo's, he's like, isn't mine like way stronger than that? So yeah, I'm not doing it. So he doesn't bother with it. So of course it comes to the nighttime and the League of Villains attack. Now Christian and Deku are just hanging out at night, running around, just sparring actually. Then a knife goes right past Deku's face, doesn't cut him, and then he sees Toga, and then it just goes weird after that. No, they wouldn't be after Bakugo this time because Bakugo didn't win. They're after Christian because he won the sports festival. So then he runs at him. So then she tries to stab Deku, but then she's kicked in the face by a blaze kick. And then Deku right behind with a flick to the head, sending flying. So then, out of nowhere, Deku is hit by a quick needle that goes straight past his face. And then, yeah. And then Deku's like, what the? So then Deku teleports, not really, runs so fast and punches Toga in the face, grabbing her needle, ripping it out, and then punching her in the face, sending her flying, knocking her out. No, not Ojiro. Did I just say that? He says he punches Toga in the face, knocking her out. Sending her flying actually doesn't knock her out. So then they immediately have to run. But right then, Deku is hit by a fire. Is almost hit. Then they see Dabi saying, oh, well, we're not really after you, kid, but I guess that almost went at you. And then he goes, who are you? And he says, I'm Dabi. Nice to meet you. And then Christian goes, oh, well, whatever, I'm just gonna fight. And then immediately Dabi shoots a giant blue fire at him, and Christian goes, so you call that a fire blast? He goes and puts his hand forward and says, this is what I call one. And then it engulfs Dabi's. And he says, that, and it hits him. He says, that's a true fire. Then he blitzes to Dabi. Dabi dodges, actually, catches his hand, and yeets his hand behind his back, and then grabs it. And then Christian tries to elbow him, trying to get him, but it's not working. He's struggling. So then he goes, the only rational reason, and backflips, grabbing Dabi and slamming him into the ground behind him. And he says, you really are dumb. So then he jumps off a tree, going for the punch on Dabi. Misses. Then Dabi goes and does like a back. Dabi does limbo, and he bends back. Christian's right above him. He blasts him with fire, knocking Christian out. Because that would have hurt. getting fire to the stomach? Ugh, not good. So Deku's like, what the? So he falls to the ground immediately. And then Deku tries to rush at him, but Deku gets blasted with fire. But then Deku immediately recovers and heads and wonders about Koda. He rushes to Koda, and Koda would probably be dead in this timeline. But I'm not, because I think I'm dead. He actually escaped because he blasted water in his eyes for enough time for Deku to get in there and Detroit smash and knock him out, sending him into the wall. Now, Deku immediately informs Aizawa that Christian was kidnapped, was taken by the villains. And then he's like, what? And then, immediately, after that, Bakugo sees Dabi running with some guy with a bag on his shoulder, and he says, hey, who are you? And he says, and then just looks at Bakugo, and Bakugo says, hey, I'm talking to you! And then he runs at him and tries to explode him, but then he's punched in the stomach by somebody. He's punched by the masked dude. The dude who can the guy who can make clones. Clone dude he gets punched by. Then he jumps off a tree and housing impacts Clone Boy, exploding him. Then all the League comes. Tomura Shigaraki, well actually not Tomura. So then Magic Boy puts Christian in a marble and Tokoyami. So immediately Bakugo goes full power. No, I'm kidding. Bakugo's knocked out. And then he finally wakes back up, and then they all run at him. Todoroki with ice, and then he says, goodbye, Shoto Todoroki, and they get away. And, well, yeah, he's gone for now. Deku, of course, is in the hospital, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they would definitely be in the hospital. Deku is in the hospital because of his injuries, because he actually was injured in this timeline. I just didn't feel like explaining it. Deku does get his broken arms, that's why he probably can't do a lot. So Deku is in the hospital, and everyone's wondering what to do. And immediately, there's an announcement by UA High saying, we're sorry that one of our students was kidnapped. So yeah. Next part. The rescue mission. Next is the Christian rescue mission. But before that, we're going to talk about how the League of Villains happens. He's tied up in a chair, and he says, what do you want? He says, and Tomura says, join us. And he says, what? He goes, why would I join you, yet you just kidnapped me, you dummy? And then Dabi goes, got him. No, I'm kidding. He doesn't do that. Dabi would never do that. And then he says, well, I don't care. I'm not joining. And then he says, he puts 4 fingers to his throat and says, you better join. And then he's blasted by a fire punch and he says, I better what? And then kicks Tomura in the face, sending him into a wall, and says, sorry guys, gotta go, and blasts them all with fire. And then tries to run out the door, but immediately Warpy Boy comes out of nowhere. I'm kidding, it's Kurogiri. Kurogiri blocks the exit, and he's like, shoot! So then he jumps up and blasts the roof open. But it doesn't really work that well. Because I'm just gonna say that the roof was actually really, really strong. So then he goes for a big boy punch to the face on Tomura, backflipping, and then fire blasting everyone again. But then he's stabbed in the stomach by somebody. I'm kidding, it's Toga. He's stabbed. And Tomura's like, why the f did you do that? We were gonna get him. And she's like, whatever. So he's stabbed and he's knocked out, with a gaping hole in his stomach. So then he wakes up again and he's dizzy. So then they're like, so, have you decided to join? And he says, I will not join. So next is the Christian rescue mission. So Tomura's like, so this one's feisty, he's never gonna join us. And he's not as angry as Bakugo, he's calm and he says, nah. So immediately the rescue mission is formed. Deku comes, so they're all running. And of course, whatever. So the rescue mission starts, and then, well, yeah. So immediately when the pizza delivery hears smash and explodes the door, and the door is broken. And Christian goes, "So you're finally here." And then he says, "Let's go," and blasts everything out of the room, and says, "It's over." So then he goes, and of course All For One shows up, fights All Might, but Christian's there, so basically he has to fight off the League of Villains, because they're gonna come at him still. So Tomura comes, he goes, "Oh, so you really wanna go?" Tomura tries to grab with 4 fingers, Christian grabs his arm and breaks it, and then kicks him, sending him flying. Dobby tries to go in for a punch, and then he says, "This is another move I learned," grabs Dobby's shoulders and flips with his foot on his stomach and says, "Circle throw," and yeets Dobby. Then Warpy Boy Kurogiri comes, he gets punched in the gut and says, "This is over, Warpy bastard," and grabs his armor and then starts lighting it on fire and says, "Goodbye," and then he jumps off a wall, kicks Tomura in the face, and then Toga comes for a stab, he catches the knife and says, "Nice try," breaks the knife, punch in the face, sending her flying. Dobby comes back with a fire blast, he says, "Nice try," and then he blasts away the fire blast, sending him flying into a wall. Then he jumps off the roof, Jimmy jumps off a building, backflipping, and says, "It's over." But then Tomura appears right in front of his face, and then he says, "Shoot." Then he's punched super duper far. But then he lands on his feet and says, "So you're good." Then he jumps towards him and punches in the face. And then he grabs Tomura's head and yeets him up and says, "Kame! Hame!" No, I'm kidding. He just shoots a big fire blast at him, incinerating Tomura but not killing. So they escape. So of course, after that, the Deku squad arrives. They trap. But All For One actually steps in this time. He's like, "Nah, we can still use this kid," and blast a gaping hole through the way that they were gonna get him. And he says, "Shoot." Then he says, "Wait a minute." And then he grabs he makes 2 fireballs in his hand and blasts backwards towards All For One and says, "You wanna fight?" And then All Might says, "No, you're not even ready to take on him." And he says, "I don't care." And then punches All For One, but it doesn't do that much. And then he's sent flying by a giant air beam, sending him to a wall. He's knocked out by that. I'm pretty sure that he would easily be knocked out. But then he wakes up immediately, breaking through everything, and they do the rescue mission one more time. And then so then Deku's like, "Come on!" And then he goes, "Duh!" And then he flies up and says, "Alright." And then he grabs Midoriya's hand. Actually, he grabs Todoroki's, because Todoroki's more of a friend to him than Deku is. So then he grabs his hand, and then they yeet him up. And they say, "Alright." And he says, "One parting gift for you, All For One." He creates a ginormous fireball and yeets it at All For One. All For One contends it with a beam, and that's sent up in the air for a giant explosion. And then All For One is hit by a punch to the face, sending him flying into a wall. And yeah, he is sent flying into a wall, basically, knocking him flat. So then All Might comes and says, 1,000,000,000% all for one, one for all. And then he says, "United States of Smash!" Bam! Knocks him out and does the thing. And that's basically it for this part. See you